I'm going to still blow it.
Whiteside Dodge Chrysler.
You ready?
Oh, below that too. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Welcome to the 101, brought to you by Whiteside Chrysler Dodge Jeep. I did get it right this time, Ryan. This is the small business and entrepreneurial show in Columbus. Sitting here with Dr. Ryan Brown. How are you, Doc?
Good. I have to say, you're looking fabulous today.
You know, I really put a lot of effort into
I
my
can
look
tell.
today because we got a big guest in here, and I didn't realize this guy was going to come in all jacked up.
I don't know. I'm feeling left out already by that welcome.
Don't worry. It's only 50 minutes that we'll ignore you, and then we'll get to you. Now, I'm going to give this a try, and I've tried to say this 4 times on my way here, and then I said it wrong, and then he told me how to say it just before we did this, so here we go. We've got Grant Dziak on.
Dude, nailed it.
Yeah, that's all I need. So, Grant, tell people a little bit of background on you, and I mean not what you did today, but what's your life
Here's
about?
my breakfast.
Yeah.
I'm from Portland, Ohio, in northern Ohio, little small town up on the lake. I moved down to Columbus 12 years ago for football. And like when I say that, I mean like I actually moved here with the intention of playing football, and then on the side was going to school. Like nobody in my hometown really did anything like that. There was no blueprint for it really. And let's be honest, our football team was horrible. So to say that I wanted to go to Ohio State and play football was like everyone just like laughed at it pretty much.
I'm laughing at you now. Go ahead.
It's okay. I can
So wait,
see.
so people actually go to college for school?
I guess.
I didn't know. I didn't know that either. So.
And let it get in the way of my education.
Right.
But so I ended up spending a year in Portland after I graduated, going to a community college to essentially be able to apply, even because I hadn't done that. My guidance counselor approached me, I think, April of my senior year, and it's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm going to Ohio State. I'm going to play football." And she's like, "Cool. Have you applied?" And it was just like cymbals crashing in the background.
Right.
And so I did that, worked the whole time, and didn't know anything about the whole process. Showed up in January of, I think, 2007, right after we got crushed against Florida, and walk-ons were 3 weeks later. Did it. I was in love as soon as I moved to Columbus. Coming from a small town, Columbus was awesome to me. It was huge. There was more than one stoplight.
So back up. So you were going to school at a little Port Clinton, playing football on the just a small town school, and you came to Columbus, go to Ohio State, and 2-3 weeks into the season, you just decided I'm going to walk on.
Well, it was January, so they do walk-ons in January. So kind of like right before the whole team gets back for everything to start winter workouts, they'll do walk-ons.
So this is after the season.
Yeah.
Of
This
your
was
freshman year.
this was in January. So
Yeah, they're trying to find bodies in January to beat up, so that when the
Right.
scholarship
Yeah.
kids come
Yeah.
in, they don't have to damage them.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
just go watch Rudy again.
Yeah, of course.
Like my story basically was Rudy, except for that cool part at the end where he made a tackle
nobody lifted you up.
and everyone cheered. Like there was no lifting up. It was like I got to go around and pick up jock straps
movie.
and stuff. But yeah, so I did that. It was awesome. I made the team. They're all hyping me up right away. Like I was in with like all the big names. I was hanging out with like Laurinaitis and all these cool people and all these guys that I had totally admired. And honestly, I quit going to school. Like I just quit. I was like, oh, I got to get ready.
Well,
for
you made the
practice.
team. Why go to school?
But I was like, I got to get ready for practice. Like I want to be on my game. I want to do this. And slowly but surely, it's like, oh, it's just one class, and then it was just one more class.
And this is all your freshman year.
Yeah, well, sophomore year, I guess, because
Yeah.
I transferred.
Okay, I got you.
But it was my first quarter.
First time at Ohio State.
Yeah, it was my first quarter at Ohio State, and I tanked it. I tanked my GPA, and when you do that your first quarter, it is borderline. It is so hard to get it back up. It takes forever. Everything was great. Went home on spring break, and finally I'm like running my mouth finally because I kept to myself. Other than that,
And you're well rested because you haven't gone to class.
right at all. My eyes didn't hurt. I wasn't reading. But yeah, so I came back right before spring practice started. They cut me. They're like, "Yeah, man, your GPA is like a 1.7." And I was like, well, I don't even know what that means.
Were you surprised it was that high? I mean, you
I was
weren't
like,
even going to class.
I was like, that's pretty good, right? And it was kind of like the biggest eye opener. And all of a sudden, like everything I'd worked for so long was just kind of like taken away from me in a moment. And I was right back into that thing where I had lost any credibility. Everyone back home could laugh at me again. and it took 2 more years to get my GPA high enough to walk back on. And I mean, right after that, I started going to class all the time. I actually studied. It was the first time in my life I was being an actual student. And
yeah, trapper, keeper, and everything.
dude, everything, the whole nine, pocket protector.
Yeah.
But I did that, walked on, made it. 2 weeks before I walked on for this, what was the second time, I tore my hamstring like 2 or 3 weeks before that. Ended up chilling for, up until then, went to, was it Tractor Supply, and got DMSO, which is like horse icy hot. Rubbed it all over my hamstring.
And stuff, right? If you get that stuff anywhere near your face, I mean, you
Dude.
might as well just put a gun in your
Horse
mouth.
icy hot.
It's what they, yeah.
I mean, I lived in biogel in college, wrestling and everything, but
That's literally like if
This is like, you get it too close to you, like your skin will burn. Like when you put it on, I had to put it on, and then I had to put an ace wrap around it, because if air hit it, it was excruciating.
it's like putting gasoline on your leg, basically.
so don't mistake it as deodorant.
And then like,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I did that, walked on, made it through all the tryouts. Never told them I had anything wrong with me. I mean, I like, to this day, I remember every step I took, and every sprint, every drill.
What position were you?
Originally I was a fullback, and then it ended up being a linebacker. So I remember every step being like, man, just don't tear again. Like, please don't. So I got through that, but that led to another injury, which led to me rolling my ankle, which led to jamming my hip up. And then I eventually got turf toe, which was kind of like
That's
the
worse.
big one, except I didn't tear the tendon. I had a bone spur. I pulled out a bone, and I had a chunk of bone in the knuckle of my big toe. And being a walk-on, you don't really have the luxury of looking at the coach and be like, hey, like, I think I have this issue, and they're going to be like, all right, let's redshirt you. It's like, cool, get off the team.
Right.
So I got it taped up every day. They put a metal plate in my shoe, and so essentially it was my dominant foot too. So it's like I'm taking on 350-pound elite athletes running at me full blast with like one foot and getting just knocked around. I did that for a year, and I ended up I quit with a year left of eligibility. I couldn't afford it. My mom owns her own business. She has her like my entire life. And she did everything she possibly could growing up. So I never needed or wanted anything. But at this point, it just didn't feel right anymore. I was 23 at this point, 22 at this point. I just started bartending, and I was making cash. I remember the first night I got handed cash, and I was just like, what is this for? And they're like, that's for tonight. I was like, for me? Or do I have to give this out to everybody? They're like, no, that's for you. I was like, this is $250. They're like, yeah, that's a slow night. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This is insane. And it was pretty much over from there. I was almost engaged when that happened, and found out I just wasn't as popular as she was, because
That's important.
yeah, she was in a lot of other relationships other than me.
That's good.
and-
So she loves love.
Yeah,
And she loves you a little.
yeah. But it's just, I was just happy I could be part of it.
Yeah.
A
Well,
moment.
It's rare to find somebody that wants to share in your life and others. And she
Right,
did that
right.
with others.
So giving,
Yeah.
very giving.
I'd love to run into her.
I might have at one point, maybe. Who
I
knows?
did. I didn't want to say it. So you were saying that I want to go back real quick, because I think there's something important about what you're doing now that kind of translates. Like, you didn't know what you were getting into. You make the team, and then you get cut, but you don't give up on this for 2 years, right?
Mhm.
So one of the things that when we have people in here, we always talk about, if your end goal, wherever you're going, as long as you never give up, like, that's the point. It's not the money, it's not the fame, it's none of that. Did you realize at that point you were going to come back and do that, or was it kind of, because you said you were really disappointed, that had to be a building block for where you're at now?
Yeah, I don't know if it was a building block or more of a realization for me. Like, I give all credit to my family. I was raised by my mom, my grandma, my uncle, my sister, and I mean, they literally instilled everything in me. Like, my grandma was the typical, like, if you didn't open a door for a girl, it's like you got a hand upside your head. It's like you walk around the car the wrong way.
So she was a boxer.
pretty much, and she still is at 89 years old.
I'll fight her. I don't care.
Good luck, man.
But you didn't. So did you feel like depression from that? Like,
Honestly,
that you got kicked, like, because you got everything you came down for, and it got taken away.
So it's really weird. I had a guy back home that was one of my coaches, and he, like, on the side started training me. He knew what I wanted to do. Nobody else in that entire town really supported me outside of my family, outside from maybe a couple people. and he started training me, and he was a teacher, and he was still coaching, and he would meet with me at like 5 a.m. We would train at 5 a.m. He'd go teach all day, then coach all day. I would go to school all day at a community college, and we'd meet up again at night. And he had a wife, and then he eventually had children shortly after that, and he was just giving me all of his time, and never charged me, never asked for anything.
When you say training, what do you mean?
I mean,
like exercise?
Sprints,
okay.
yeah, everything. He did all of it for me. And when I showed up at Ohio State, I mean, I'm not bragging, I was a freak. I really was. Like, I couldn't even imagine being like that anymore. And shortly after being with the team, it's like I got weaker, slower, heavier. And then I finally realized it's because that was like super one-on-one, and the training with the team, even though it's Ohio State, it's made up for the entire team, 120 guys. So as soon as it happened, the very first thought that hit my head was, damn it, I have to tell my mom. And then the second thing was, I'm so stoked I get a chance to get right back to where I was and revamp everything. And the following year when I went to walk on, I was 0.04, so 400ths away on my GPA from being able to walk back on. And it's like, just that, and being told that in that moment, like, to them, it's nothing to be like, no, it's not good enough. And you're just like, oh, man, that's another year. And it didn't even faze me. I just went right back to it.
Because you were positive about it.
I was positive about it, but it was more like, I almost became more passionate about the journey of it.
Well, because you had more time, so you could put more time into your craft. So you were going to get better. So by the time it was go time again, how much better could you be? Because you'd have 2 years under your belt versus the one.
Right. And that was essentially, I was like, each time something like that happened or a setback, I was like, this is going to be so much better. And then all the injuries happened. But it all turned out to be like a huge blessing in disguise. You know, I had just started working in the bar. I got sucked up into that immediately. I quit school. That quarter, I had a friend back home that was killed in a car accident. Same time I found out about my girlfriend at the time. Just got done playing football, and I was making cash, and enough to like even help send some home every now and then. I was able to live normal without waiting for every 9 weeks for a disbursement from my college loans. So it was awesome. I got sucked up into that, and I ended up running bars and restaurants downtown for 8 years. And it was such an amazing experience. Within 11 or 10 months, I went from being a bouncer to running 3 venues, and then I was at another venue for 7 years. So about 5 years into that, I kind of got a little burnout on it, and I decided I wanted to do something more in fitness. I had a huge weight loss. I went from 295 down to 225 in like 5 months. And yeah, I mean, I didn't do like the whole social media thing yet really that much. I didn't know how to do that stuff. And I wasn't even like, I want to be a trainer or anything.
Wait, which part? The documenting your weight loss? Or
yeah, or anything. I mean, I was like the dude that would like take a picture of his dog, maybe like the eggs I was eating that
I'm
one.
so glad you said dog. And when you said that, I was like, you're saying it's going too slow. So you're taking a picture of your dog. What?
Like, I mean, like that, and that's it. It's the extent of what I did. I never documented it. This was I think 2014.
Well, what you mean is like now a big part of your influence and a big part of your business and branding is through social media and online. But at the time, you were going through this big transition in your life, changing your body back to how it was, and you weren't documenting any of it. You weren't even on social media, really.
Yeah, it really wasn't a thing to me at all.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I didn't understand what that was, and it's so funny how it plays into everything I do now. It's like the challenge. Like I just did it yesterday. Like the challenges I give people are like, do something good without documenting it. Like every time somebody gives a homeless person $1, it's like they have their phone up, like, oh, like I'm not doing this for attention. Like like nobody can do anything anymore, and I'm just as guilty of it. It's like everything has to be documented. Everything, like the underlying mission is to get it out there and share it.
Would you say so when you were, because I mean I've seen you, I remember you at the bars and bartending and working and all that. Did something happen in your life that you decided, you know, I'm 295, like I'm working at this bar, I'm ready to change things, or was there, I mean, you don't just wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym today, or, you know.
Yeah, I worked out still. I worked out all the time, but I grew up very big. Like at age 12, I was 215, almost 6 foot, and then I quit growing and everyone else kept going up. So
so you're really good in middle school.
yeah. But so it's like I found my identity in that, because I was actually super insecure about it. Like I was heavy growing up But
Because you were a monster.
yeah, but then it was like, like kids deal with it. It's like you walk around, you're like, oh, I got man boobs and I'm a guy and I'm, society makes you think this
Right.
and you got to be. So it's like I found my identity in being the bigger person, and I just like went all in on it. It's like I was the cool dude who could eat, 4 Chipotle burritos and could take the staff out drinking and partying.
You just embraced it and said, I'm a big guy.
Yeah, and it was like, but it never felt right to me. And I was like, man, like this just doesn't feel right. And then actually Ohio State lost to Michigan State. I think it was 2013 in the Big Ten championship game. And I was working the bar. I was a manager, and everyone just got me hammered that night. Everyone shot to have a shot. And one of the servers walked in the office, and I'm sitting there with my dress shirt on, like the buttons are just like screaming because they're pulling apart so hard. And she's like, for as much as you work out, she's like, you're fat as hell. And I was like, what did you just say to me? We ended up making it was like a $500 bet. So it's November. Who'd have better abs by Cinco de Mayo? And she was already like a fitness chick, and she was dating a big time bodybuilder at the time. And I'm like, what did I even just do? In January, that was like January 2nd, I changed my diet. I quit drinking altogether, just cold turkey. Changed my diet, my training, everything. And it just started dropping off of me. It was insane. So did all that. And I think 2015 maybe, I looked at my buddies that own a gym here, and I was like, man, I'm sick of this. Like, I don't want to be in the restaurants and the bars all night anymore. And they're like, well, why don't you train clients? And I was like Ralphie in A Christmas Story. I was like, yeah, clients. I had no idea what I was doing. That was on a Thursday, and they're like, they're like, it's going to start out really slow. You have to build a name for yourself. So the very first thing, I hit up like 4 or 5 of my best friends. I was like, if you want to do this, I'll train you, free or like super reduced price. And at this point, between that year, I finally had started using social media. So people started following kind of along with some of the fitness stuff I was doing. So I announced that, but I don't really think it was social media. It was being in the bars, like you said. Like, that's how you and I originally met each other. And that was on a Thursday, and by Monday morning, I had like 60 clients.
Sure.
I had no idea what I was doing. I was doing one client every hour on the hour. I did that for a little over a year. Started consulting with high schools, football programs that don't really have a lot going for them. Started working with them as like a third-party consultant, and slowly but surely I realized I did not care at all about telling people like sets and reps. Like I didn't, it was cool to see their positive transformations, but it was more.
Well, it gets really redundant.
Well, it's redundant, but I realized that wasn't a passion of mine at all. I was working with people in their most vulnerable state. Because at the end of the day, I don't care who you are. I'm friends with a couple of the best bodybuilders in the world. And that's not to brag. That's very humbling, because I sat with them at like the Arnold this year talking. I'm like, how awesome it is to be on that stage. Like, no matter what, you're one of the top 10 physiques in the entire world. He looked at me, he's like, and that was the most insecure I've ever been in my entire life. He's like, because I know I'm being judged so hard. And it was like one of the most profound things to me, because I'm like, dude, you have like the body that every dude is going after. Every guy's like, oh, I want to get bigger, I want to get ripped in abs. And dude, all it is insecurity across the board. So, yeah. So, did all that, but I realized I was working with people in their most vulnerable state. So it didn't matter how much money you had. It didn't matter what your job was, what your status was, married, not married, good person, bad. It did not matter. Like, you're down there, and you have got to do the work in order to get out of that. You can't buy your way out of it. You can't be nice to somebody. And through that, though, people started opening up to me. Like, they were talking about relationships with their children or their jobs and stuff. And one day I had a woman that was like, she's like a month ago, we had a great workout. We had a great conversation. She's like, because of that, I went home and I was in a better mood with my husband. And because of that, I was nicer to my kids. Because of that, I was so much more amped up to like go to work. And I had this great day at work. Well, the next day I was even more amped up to go to work. And I started doing things for other people. I was getting all of my stuff done because I was showing up early. She's like, in 30 days, I ended up with this huge promotion. She's like, and it all started with that conversation. I realized, I was like, dude, that's it. Like, that's what I want to do. So it took a hot minute. It took a while to transition into it. I slowly started moving into the online space for personal training and fitness training. I still don't really have any idea what I was doing. I was literally typing up PDFs and sending them out to clients and checking in through email, and thought that was great. It was awesome. I had a ton of clients. It was great. I was making a ton of money. This is about 18 months ago.
Just as a personal trainer.
Yeah, I was doing that, and I was still bartending just on the weekends for fun because I
Right.
loved it. And it was never like the bartending it was that I literally got to interact with people all night long.
Right.
I'd see 1,500 people a night, and they knew me, and I knew them.
Yes,
and I
your
knew their
social
families.
skills, yeah.
Dude, it was so much fun. And so about a little over a year ago, about 14 months ago, I got offered a pretty big opportunity with a good friend of mine at the time. And I went in business with him, and that was out in California, and I was traveling back and forth all the time, and it kind of happened super organically, and we took on a huge undertaking, and but long story short, I left that in January of this year, and chalking that up to a big learning lesson of not going into business with friends.
Right.
And then I went from not having a ton growing up to living in abundance for 8 years through the bars and training, and money wasn't an issue. And then I spent the first 8 months of this year being the most broke I've ever been as a grown-up, and through that process I realized it was the most rich I've ever felt.
Right.
And it was so like mindset shifting to me, and I was like, dude, I just want to share this with people.
So what's your main business right now?
It's really weird when people ask me that because I don't know how to quantify it. I guess the easiest way I run like high-level life coaching. I don't like that term because I think there's so many implications with it.
Because I follow you online, and just real quick to kind of, I mean, you played football, you got into the bar industry, you've always had a health and fitness background, but with being in the bar industry, you have this awesome, social experience where you're, able to just connect with everybody, especially doing that for so long, and you start learning some business stuff, you start training some people and realizing, hey, I can teach people how to get in shape, but these people need a lot more than that.
Right.
People know, hey, if I stop at a Speedway gas station, I can get a Snickers or a banana. They know which is a healthier choice. But having the inspiration and the dedication and the motivation to actually make that decision is where you're going, hey, that's where I can change someone's life. Having somebody, where I can help them with their relationships at home, where I can help them, understand their place in this world a little bit better because you've been through all of that. And so you're getting more into that coaching side.
Yeah, well, and it's so much of this whole concept of internal versus external. Everybody focuses on the external. They focus on, I want the abs. I want the body of my dreams because that's going to give me confidence. But that's essentially what it is. And I always use the example of a guy that walked up to me in the gym one time and he's like, I need to gain weight. And I'm like, what? Like, I had my headphones on. I was like, are you talking to me? And he's like, I need to gain weight. I was like, okay, why do you want to gain weight? Because I need to get bigger. Why do you want to get bigger? Because I want to get stronger. Well, why do you want to get stronger? Because I want to get jacked. I'm like, all right, well, already your goals are kind of not going in together cohesively. But so why do you want to get jacked? So I look good. Why do you want to look good? So I can get a girlfriend. I was like, that's it. I was like, it's not that you want to be able to bench a certain number. It's that you're lacking confidence. You don't think you're adequate. You don't think you're enough. And that's coming from something maybe deep-rooted. Maybe it's surface layer. It can be anywhere.
Right.
Well, let's figure that out because you're going to figure that out. The other's not really going to matter. Like, everyone focuses on a number on a scale or how many inches or like what is my pant size or everyone finds their value, their self-value and self-worth in their body and how they appear because again, like your
the
body,
physical world versus the non-physical world. Right.
So they focus on that, just like business, which is my entire approach to business, fitness, relationships, everything. Everybody focuses on the outside first and then tries to work their way in. So they might get abs, and then next thing you know, they're gaining weight and they're losing it and they can't control anything anymore. And it's because their digestion's messed up, their hormones are off whack, all these things. But whereas if you would have started the other way, kind of like with your why, which is super overplayed, but you start with why you're doing this. And that's scalable. The external's not scalable. There's a ceiling to it in every aspect of life. In business, everyone says, I want to make $5 million this year. We're going to do $5 million. Okay, cool. So you get to the end of the year. They go, we made $5 million, but what they don't tell you that they had to fire their top 10 people that each make $100,000 each to make that $5 million. So you didn't make $5 million. You manipulated the system. You manipulated the internal processes. Like a pec is 3 inches, 4 inches long. It's not meant to move 500 pounds. So you have to manipulate your body. That's why there's power lifters that can squat 900 pounds and their legs aren't that big. They're manipulating movement patterns. And the majority of the world focuses on the external. And they focus on those big number things and because to start with from the inside out, it's slower process and it takes a lot more time. It's harder to stick with.
Well, let's do this because you're on a roll, and I hate to cut you off, but we have to go to break. When we come back, though, I want to get back into what you're doing now, and I really want to come back and talk about mentoring because the story that you told to begin with, I don't know if you realized who's mentored you to get you to this point, but it's like you must have taken pieces of these with you. We're going to go to break right now. You're listening to the 101 brought to you by Whiteside Chrysler Dodge Jeep.
Everything okay over there, Jim?
Oh yeah.
We can go right back into it.
Oh, yeah, I gotta stretch. Okay, I'm good.
Good. Yeah.
All right, ready, Jimmy?
Yep.
Welcome back to the 101 brought to you by Whiteside Chrysler Dodge Jeep. Still here with Dr. Ryan Brown and Grant Dziak. Yes?
That's 2 times. You're 2 for 2 right now.
I can't have him back because I'm going to lose this piece of paper that I
You
wrote
better,
up my...
you better go to the casino today, man.
Listen, man, I'm on fire.
You're doing good.
We were talking a little bit about your background before, and you were kind of talking about, in a roundabout way, I don't know if you realize when you're talking about the people in your life that have influenced you and got to this point and what you're doing now, the mentoring part of this. So I was just writing down a few things that you talked about your mom, that she had a small business, and she was always there for you and always put food on the table, and you didn't have a need, right? But then you had that coach that was willing to help you train for Ohio State. So he's doing it morning and night. He's with his family, but he's putting time into you. And then that lady that you worked with and she gets a promotion, her life is better. Do you realize that someone's paid it forward for you to be able to give that to other people?
Absolutely.
So you are, like you said, you work with local high schools and you have a bunch of clients. What is it to you that's important? Is it the mentoring aspect? Like, what's fulfilling to you? Because you are a small business owner, but you're different than anybody we've ever had. Because you're not a person that is in one place all the time. Like you said, you're traveling in California back and forth, and you stop that. You kind of keep getting into like this serial entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no defined space for you. You're just kind of going where you want to go.
That's exactly what it is, and that's what I.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on the show. I just answered it.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
What's the name of your business, by the way?
That's so like my.
I hope it's Dziak something or other. So people go, Dziak?
It's French.
Yeah.
That's the funniest aspect of it. So like my actual business would be called Grant Dziak and Dr.
Right.
Because I don't know. I started that it was actually like one of the first workouts I was doing with one of my friends, and she made a joke about like a booty workout, and I was like, oh, grant me a booty, and
right.
she like laughed, and I was like, oh, maybe I should call it like what I do, grant me a body. This is like 4 years ago. I had no idea.
It's like a tattoo though,
right?
You know, once you have their email address.
Well, I said it, and I was like, that's lame. And it was probably like 6 months later. I was guest bartending for a Christmas party somewhere. And this group of people grant me a body, and I was like, man, maybe that does work.
Yeah.
So I changed my Instagram handle to that. And people were like, "That's genius." I was like, "It's just my name."
Right.
I was like, honestly, those are like jokes that were made on me growing up. Everyone would be like, "Oh, grant me a wish." Like,
right.
What are you doing? Like,
I don't get it. What's the joke?
Exactly. Like, I would say that. Like, that was an insult to people. So I just did that, and so I call it Grant Me a Body. So like the actual program, everything I do, like, I don't have a name for it. I launched it. On a dime this past September. I literally got on my Instagram story. I was trying to formulate everything. I launched an ebook on like how to make healthy food taste better. I was a cook for a long time when I was younger, and people were always like, "Dude, you should totally." Because I would share like my food and my meals on Instagram. People were like, "You should make a cookbook," and I was like, "Nah, I don't need to do that. Like, nobody cares that much." And it kind of plays into that whole imposter syndrome that so many people struggle with. I had value, and I didn't realize it. And the thing is, everybody has value. Everybody has something they can do, and they don't realize it because they undervalue it because they're like, no, this is just what I do. Well, if you know how to fix a plumbing issue, that's value. You have that, but you go, no, I just know how to do it. To me, I was just like, I just know how to cook food and make healthy food taste better. So I put out that ebook.
Do you see yourself as somebody who people just come to for advice, and that's where you find yourself kind of in this mentoring stage? Because and the reason I ask you that is what I see online is and at the bar scene and just in general from knowing you over the last 10 years or so, there's people who want to be leaders, and then there's leaders, and a lot of times growing up, I always wanted to be a leader, and And then there's times where people who say, I don't want to be a leader, but they're leaders. And I started reading this book years ago, and he started defining leader and leadership. And they're saying, well, there's a lot of people that want to be leaders, but the definition of a leader is people are following them. You know, everybody wants to be an Instagram model.
What book was this?
Where's Waldo?
Yeah, where's
Dr. Seuss.
The little train that could, I think. Yeah, but I'll figure it out. I'll get it to you. But it's fascinating because so many people want to be a leader, but the definition of a leader is having followers. Because you could say I'm a leader, well, you could want to be a leader with all your heart, and you may be doing all the right things to be a leader. But if nobody's following you, by definition, you're not a leader. And you, what I witness are, whether you want to be or not, but I think you're embracing it, is you're a leader. People want to follow you and listen to what you're saying. So if you came out tomorrow with a new ebook or a new program, people are going to say, hey, I'm gravitating towards that. I want to know what that is, what you say. They listen. When you write something, they read it. And I think that's so fascinating because that's the world we live in now. With social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all those things, you know, you can make a living by being an influencer, a leader. Mm-hmm. And it sounds to me that that's a big part of what you're doing.
Yeah, and that word influencer, I think, it's like the word leader. It's so kind of bastardized.
What's the modern day?
Yeah, but it's so bastardized because you look at people might have 500,000 followers on social media. That doesn't make you an influencer.
Right.
That doesn't mean
then they have like 4 likes.
Right, but they also don't give out any value. It's like,
well, exactly. So real quick, that's where I was going with this is you could be an influencer or a leader, quote unquote, but what are you influencing? Right? You know, you could have $1 billion, but what are you doing with that $1 billion?
Well, how you talk about people want to be a leader. Anybody that wants to be a leader, they don't want to be they want the rank. They don't want the responsibility. And people that are like that, they get into a role and they then see themselves as the exception instead of the example. And like,
wait, Mike, didn't we drop a Spider-Man quote last week or 2 weeks? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes.
Yeah, the Spider-Man's grandpa.
It's his Uncle Ben.
Oh, Uncle Ben.
R.I.P. Uncle Ben. He does die. In every single movie, he dies. You were saying something about Instagram before we turn on the microphones about, because one of the things we always joke about is you'll see everybody. What I love is those candid shots where somebody just is holding a cup of coffee and laughing, and then, then they're a professional trainer or all that kind of stuff. In that world where it's kind of like spread out, like everybody can post something or create some kind of content, you're actually doing the work. Like you're doing the hands-on stuff. You're not just posting stuff like follow me, because you see a lot of the, when I think of quote followers, it's how many people can I get to like my page, right? It's not how many people will come along with what I'm saying, because you also speak, you do speaking engagements too, right? You have to go up there and be confident that what you're saying is not just, hey, like me on Instagram. Like you've got to have some kind of value there, right?
Yeah, it's really strange, and it's something I've come to realize so much probably in the last 12 months, and it kind of plays into that whole idea of imposter syndrome, like not thinking you're good enough for something or not worthy of a position. And I mean, it's funny that like, and of course, like coming into this, I knew this conversation would eventually somehow turn to social media because it's what runs so much of the world.
Well, we're
now.
On social media as we're talking about this on the radio.
Right,
so yeah.
right. You know what I mean? But that's what it is people just get it messed up. Like you see people that might not have a huge following, but they have a lot of value, and they are just like, oh, like I'm not good. I can't do that because I don't have a following. And then you see people that don't know anything, but they have a huge following. You have like 20, and I think everybody can give perspective, but it's like 20-year-olds that just have huge followings, and now you're a life coach. Like, what do you like?
Right.
What? And I'm not knocking that, but I'm 32, and there's times when I'm even like, I don't know if I'm in a position, but it's perspective and principles. It's just that young. It's almost like you don't have enough principles built up yet.
You don't have life experience.
Right.
So if you're 20 years old, unless you've really gone through hard times, you don't know. But like your example of, you come from a small town where no one's ever done anything. And I know that's probably offensive to the one person that's probably come to that town, but I don't care about you. And then I think about, you get here, like you had to find somebody that was on your side, right? So you did find somebody at home. You had a family that was supporting you, but you did have to make your own way, because it wasn't like somebody said, hey, do you want to work at my restaurant? You came here with a plan to play football here. It may not have worked out exactly how you thought it would, but you did something that 99% of other people wouldn't even bother. But out of that, you had to get some kind of background to say, I can do my own thing, right? So you would never work for somebody again, right?
No, I wouldn't. I work with people. like I'm never even, like, I'll never even have anybody that works for me. I'll have people that work with me. Like, I don't know. You know, like, when I ran the bars for a long time, and I was the GM for 7 years, but I never even put a title on my business cards, because I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I clean the bathrooms also. If I have to, I don't care. But because of that, the servers would do that, or they would do dirty work, or a security guard might go way outside his job description because they would see me do it. And I wasn't doing it to influence them. It was self-serving.
You were just doing it because it was the right thing to do.
Right, but it was self-serving. Like, I did it because that's, like, it was either that or I was used to, you know, my grandma coming down on me.
Punching you in the head.
Pretty much. Like, going Evander Holyfield on me. But that's why I did it. And it was so funny, because it's like kind of what I do now is, you know, people are like, oh, like, thank you for your message and thanks for this. And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm like really, really glad that you get value out of it. But it's the most selfish thing. It's so self-serving. Like, the things that I'm talking about are things that I've gone through. You know, everybody wants to be the guru out there. And kind of like we said a minute ago, like, I'm not the guru, I'm not the specialist, I'm not the expert. I am literally a liaison of lots of information, amazing interactions, great relationships, great family, some cool mentors, some really hard times. And it's like it all just compounds together. So it's not that I'm the guy for anything. It's like I'm like an Angie's List of information and experience, I guess.
Well, and people gravitate towards you, and that's what I was talking about. Is just naturally, once you kind of took to social media, people know who you are, they like you, and so because of that, people gravitate towards you. And the fact that you're able to not necessarily acknowledge that, but the fact that you're able to use that power. That's why I said with great power comes great responsibility. You have to be self-aware in this day and age, and to be self-aware that says, hey, I can influence a lot of people to live a happier, healthier life, and to actually do that and give that value, that's amazing, and it feels good for you. It feels good for everyone around you.
No, I totally agree, and it does. And that's where I'd say it's super self-serving, because when you talk about responsibility, all of a sudden it's like, well, don't talk about this.
Yeah.
Well, why? Because, well, that's, you know, that's going to, this group of people are, you can't let kids hear that. Why? Like, I'm not saying anything that's not real. I'm not sugarcoating it, and I'm not manufacturing anything. I'm talking about things that I went through, things that I experienced, and I can only be me.
Yeah.
People try to manufacture their vulnerability. They try to manufacture, like, a rough life if they don't think theirs was hard enough. Or they, you know, they tippy-toe around stuff. It's like when I speak to schools, and it's like, okay, well, don't talk about this, this, and this. And I'm like, why? Do you think they're not?
Right.
I was like, I was like, you don't want me to talk anything about drugs? You don't think any of the kids in this high school are doing drugs?
Right.
I was like, what they need is they need to hear that.
Right.
They need these things, and it's just like, I hate to even like I'm not about the whole millennial thing, or I mean, technically I'm a millennial, I guess, like right at the tail end of it, but it's like, we just need something to blame on. And you look at every generation, it's just we talk horrible about the next one that comes after us. You know, everyone's like, oh, instant gratification. And I always say it, I'm like, yeah, at one point, when people put wheels on a wagon and got a horse to, they're like, oh, they just want instant gratification. We walked that. And that was instant gratification at one point. You know, and then, you know, you go to like the internet and all these things. It's like, yeah, I mean, even to me, it is super weird that I can sit on my couch and I can order food, I can order groceries, I can literally, you can do anything.
All your Christmas shopping.
You can do everything.
I did mine that way, and I was instantly gratified.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
Because you bought them all for you.
But everyone talks about instant gratification like it's a bad thing, and it's not. It's working smarter instead of harder. The difference is when you haven't had setbacks, can you handle it when you don't get that instant gratification? Are you like football? Like, I didn't get that instant gratification, but I worked around it, and I kept going with it. And it's like, you know, entrepreneurs, it's like, you say the word entrepreneur, and like, I hate that word because it honestly is just like become something that kids like to put in their profile. Like, it's a cool thing to have in there.
You always see that, and it's followed by Bitcoin trader.
Well, it's like entrepreneur. What do you sell? What is your service? Well, I don't have one, but
That's who I am. That's
what are you? Oh, I'm a hustler. What do you hustle? Like what does the word hustle mean? Does that mean you jog to your
That's
car?
the word I can't stand is hustle, man. I'm on my hustle. What does that even mean?
What
Does
about
that mean
grind?
you're driving from a place to another?
Dude, grind,
Hustle,
grind,
courage.
savage,
Yeah.
beast mode, all these things. I hate them. That's why I launched my apparel
Yeah.
line that's Unicorn Apparel. It's just different because
Right.
it's like all these things are trying to empower you by being some powerful entity, like a lion. And like, dude, there's nothing more powerful than a person stepping into their true selves. There's nothing more powerful. Everyone talks about it. You know, fitness is a huge thing right now. Obviously, it's like it's a fad to do fitness or be a coach. Everybody's a coach of some sort. And it's like, but what does that mean to you? It's a problem is people go from the outside in instead of the inside out. They go, oh, well, what's cool right now? It's cool to be a coach. So what am I? I'm a coach. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do it through social media. I'm going to have online programming. And the problem is then they do all these things and they try to put, processes in place. And they fail horribly, and it's because they never looked at like what their why was. Like, why are you doing this?
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there that look at ways that they can make money. Like, hey, I see an opportunity here to maybe make money being this or being that, versus just being that, and then building, like you said, from the inside out. Because there's people who say I could maybe build a business around coaching, and then there's people who go, I'm just going to go be a coach and hopefully people, attract to me or they see that calling.
But I also think there's a difference in coaching. If you took, let's say, people that were in coaching in the 90s. So, for example, a lot of guys that hired me to be in radio 20 years ago have been coaches.
Right.
But that's because they were fired at their current job. But they couldn't get back in the industry because it's kind of like a high school. But they got coaching jobs after that to coach radio sales
so much
people or
knowledge.
TV.
Yeah.
Right, because they did have real work experience in that field. They were forced out or phased out. They got to do something, but at least they had the knowledge to impart to somebody else. Now there's so many people that are, business coaches, or I'm the guy that, if you hire me, I'm going to get revenues back up, blah, blah, blah. That's an accountant. That's not a business coach or,
Right.
Well, like that is huge because you see this all the time. I'm gonna 10x your business. You're gonna go to 6 figures and all these things. Like, no, you might give them the tools to get them to 6 figures, but it's way more exciting and lucrative to say, I'm gonna give you 6 figures. It's empty promises, and it's what's super saturated out there.
It's all marketing hype, yeah.
And I don't believe in that. And because I don't believe in it, I can't get behind that. So I don't do things that way. I do it my own way. And then everyone's like, man, how do you do it? Like, how do you structure it? I'm like, I don't know. I wake up, I eat breakfast, I go to the gym, I share what I'm doing, I give some insight about my life, but I pull out a principle. That's genius. I'm like, what do you mean that's genius? I'm being myself. I don't care what anybody thinks of me, and people say that. There's a big difference between being selfish and being selfish. When I say it's one of the most unselfish things you can do is to be selfish, I don't mean like go like push over an old lady at the grocery store to take the last shopping cart.
Unless you can.
I mean, I'm
Like, if you're in that kind of shape, I'm just saying.
I'm not against it. I thought she just wanted.
That's my figgy pudding.
Yeah.
She,
She it was all again. Don't do it. Well, I mean, do it.
you ever seen a Heisman pose? But what I'm saying is we wake up, and what is the very first thing everyone does in the morning? They reach over, they grab their cell phone. As soon as you pick up that cell phone, you're serving everybody else from that point on. You're answering text messages, emails, phone calls, whatever it is. It's the universe in your world now. And you say the word universe, and people are like, "Oh, you're so woo woo about stuff." And I'm like,
You're so like
no,
Ryan.
yeah, you're so like,
Yeah, you guys are double woo over there.
yeah.
You're so new age.
Is there a tree we can hug
Yeah.
over here? But no, it's like, it's like you were letting the universe come in and control you before you have an outset on it. So, for instance, if before you walked in, if you would have said something to me like, "Man, this guy's like such a jerk," like
He
he would have.
probably did.
Well, he might have been a text message. Actually, he just happened to know.
You know me so well.
But that's the thing. If you would have walked in, you could have said hi. I'm like, yeah, man, I hear it in his voice. Or if you would have been like, man, this guy is so awesome, you could have walked in and kind of yelling. I'd be like, oh, I'm sure he's just having a bad day. It's like how we preface everything. So how you preface your day is how your day is going to go, and it's what your outlook on everything is going to be.
Let me ask you this. I see a lot of, whenever you look at these entrepreneurial articles or anything you see about small business and these people that hustle.
I already know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
You get up at 3 a.m.
There you go. Okay, so here's my question. So the hot thing right now.
2:30 a.m. Mark Wahlberg.
Okay, well that was what I was gonna say. So now 4:30 in the morning is not good enough. 3 o'clock's not good enough. 2:30 in the morning, that's when you got to get up because no one else is up.
Look, I just don't go to bed.
I'm not
I
gonna
grind. I'm a hustler.
I'm not.
Hustler,
But
baby.
see, I don't get up at that time because I'm gonna get down there and I'm gonna start sending emails and all that stuff. But I am gonna get the garbage stuff out of the way. But that's something I've always done.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it because it's the trend. Because you see a lot of people that you can tell when they just read this or saw Mark Wahlberg on Entertainment Tonight or something, because they are dragging around at 3 o'clock because they've been getting up at 4:30 in the morning and have done nothing.
Well, first of all, anyone who's posting on social media that they're getting up at 3 a.m. has probably done it once.
Right.
The people that are really getting up at 3 a.m. and hustling.
Just change that filter
Quote,
and do it
unquote.
every day. Like, this is me.
Yeah.
I am still wearing the same shirt.
Yeah, well, it's just like the people who give $1 to a homeless person and record it. I mean, it's probably not something they're doing all the time. They're getting the wrong attention.
There's so much in what you just said though,
Yeah.
and what I'm talking about manufacturing.
Well, that's what
you
I was
do.
getting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
But that was my question to you: is you've got people that probably think that you get up at 3 in the morning and you're eating 40 eggs and you're running up the stairs or something. Everyone can do it differently,
Mhm.
right? So it's not. It's one thing doesn't fit all people, and I just see a lot of people that are falling in that trap, especially on Instagram. It'll be if you get up at 4:30 in the morning and you do all this.
it's just whatever's hot, like whatever's
Right.
like the coolest thing, the trend to do. So here's the weird thing: is I wake up between 4 and 4:30 every day, and it has nothing to do with that though, because I'm actually really against the like wake up early, do that. It's not wake up early. It's like go to bed on time,
Right.
You know, because you have this. This is why I hate memes. I hate memes and like. There's a lot of amazing motivational things out there that get great points across. However, it's like I feel like they all just need to go one layer deeper. Like one layer deeper on explaining what that means is, you know, it doesn't matter what time you wake up. It matters what you do in the time that you're awake. Like you can, I see the same thing. Like there's people that might wake up super early, but if you wake up super early and you just play Nintendo games, like
Right.
that's it.
But I think that therein lies the problem, though, is the masses of people.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody creates a meme and they want it to get clicks and to go viral and all that stuff, you know, they got to have something that's very subtle, because if it's too much work, if it's too much thinking, those are the ones you get, you know. So yeah, that's where you need a personal coach to take you deeper.
Well, and that's where 99% of people operate is on the surface layer.
Exactly.
And it's not a knock on people. I did it forever, and that's not to be like, oh, I'm so
It's just where people
so
are.
achieved.
Yeah.
It's that, dude. Like, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, I'm like, yeah, I know everything. Well, that's the furthest I've ever been in my life. Of course, I know everything. That's why when people struggle with things, or depression, or anxiety, or they go through a breakup, it is the worst thing. And you look at somebody, you know, you might be 20 years old and you go through a horrible breakup and you can't fathom life after that. And you know, everybody's, you know, I don't care. At the end of the day, everybody has contemplated suicide at some point because they just don't know what is beyond it. It seems so hopeless. But then you get somebody that's maybe 50 and they look at that person and they're like, dude, chill out. Like, it's not that big of a deal. Well, to them, it is the biggest deal in the world because that's as far as you've ever been because you don't have that perspective yet. Whereas maybe when you're 50, you're like, man, I remember going through this, this, and this, and this is what came out the other side. I made it through that. And it's just, I don't know, man. It's kind of like mind-numbing. But like for me personally, I get up between 4 and 4:30 every day because I used to be late for everything. I was always late, and my mom is notoriously late for everything. It's literally because she's working. Like in her head, she owns a flower and gift store, and it's amazing. It's not like quick flowers and stuff. I mean, she will search out the most unique pieces for a funeral because that's the thing. She knows her why. She started out so far behind the 8 ball. She took over a floral business that she worked at when she was in high school. They sold her the business essentially, and she took over, and it was like, it immediately put her in bankruptcy because there was issues with the IRS that she acquired, and this is back in the late 70s. So
Wonder why it was for sale.
yeah, but that's the thing is it wasn't. They were just like they handed it off, and she took it. And this is late 70s, so it's like it's not like people were posting on Facebook and their location, and you could track them down.
It was on MySpace.
Yeah, AOL, A Messenger, but yeah. So she started out behind the 8 ball, worked her way out of that. My father, didn't talk about him at all. He took everything from her. Again, she started out all over again. For the first 5 years of my life, my sister and I lived at my grandma's because my mom rented her space for her business, and she didn't have enough money. She was crushing it in terms of like how much she was bringing in, but she had to pay employees and everything, and she didn't care how much of a hole it put her in. She wanted to deliver the best possible product out to people, because her why wasn't, I want to do with flowers. It was, I want people that are getting flowers for a funeral to have a sense of relief, even if it's just something as materialistic as flowers. Like the experience, the going through it. She's like, I don't want to add any more stress to their life. If anything, I want to help console them. She's a florist helping console. She's going outside of that because she actually cares about the people. So that's what I grew up watching. But she lived for the first 5 years of my life in her office at the shop, and it's 15, 20 minutes away from my grandma's. She didn't want us to grow up like that, so we lived at my grandma's, and she would drive out every morning to wake us up, drive back into work all day, drive back out at night to put us to sleep. So that's 40 minutes a day of driving, so that we didn't have to live like that at all. And she did that for a really long time, and that's what I grew up watching, though, and that's why I think it was probably one of the most impactful things to me. But
well, so like Michael was saying, those are all the influences you have for your business today.
Yeah.
What would you say is on, like, speaking of business cards and entrepreneur, I've actually had people give me a business card that says entrepreneur. Like, what would your business card say? Do you have a business card? Have you made those?
No.
No?
No, I
So
don't.
your business card's online? I mean, how do you get business? How do you make money?
Because I am my business card. I'm like my billboard.
You know, more on your shirt. It's
But I mean, and I'm not saying that in a cocky way. We talk about brands and you are your brand. But the problem is like you tell people that like you are a brand. Like the way you are is your brand, and they immediately go, oh, social media. I'm not like running a business on social media. That's not me. And I'm like, no, dude. Like how you do everything every day of your life is your brand.
Right.
Like so, no matter, you don't know what you're going to need in life. You have a horrible brand, like you are a horrible person, it follows you everywhere. Because you never know when you're going to give a good impression to somebody. You never know who's watching you. Like when I was running the bars or bartending, I shook every single person's hand. And you know how busy it would be in there.
Right.
Every time I made a transaction, I would shake a hand. And because of that, it wasn't always for the person I was serving and be like, oh, they're going to give me a better tip. It might have been for the dude down the way that was watching me, and he's like, I want that kind of service. Like, that's what I want. Like, people would walk in, and we'd be slammed, but I knew them, and I knew their drink order. I would just hand them their drinks over top of everyone. Everyone was like, my God, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It wasn't because they were going to tip me a lot. It was because all the people watching me are like, I want that kind of, I want that. I want to feel that.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but I wasn't doing it for that reason. I was doing it because I appreciate those people. They come in all the time. They bring business in all the time. It's organic. But through all these organic things, I was able to see the impact that it has on other people when they witness it.
This has been like the most fascinating hour we had. I want to thank you, Grant, for coming on today and going into detail. Would you come back? What I'd like to do is pick a topic and give you some time so you could go on a rant about it, because you have a deep understanding of how this all works, the entrepreneurship, but also having the mental space to operate in. And I'm fascinated by everything you said.
Thank you.
Ryan, you're off the show. Anyway, that'll be it for the 101 this week, brought to you by Whiteside Chrysler Dodge Jeep, and we'll see you next week.